This is Women's Leadership Success.com radio, episode number 93. Only 71% of the original Fortune 500 companies exist today. Why? Because business leaders have traditionally relied on past results to manage future growth. In today's fast-moving and wildly unpredictable business climate, looking in the rearview mirror is a sure route to extinction. Ask yourself, are you so mired in the operations and doing things the same old way that it is difficult to keep up with the changes that would benefit your company? Join us today with our special guest, who is a business contributor to ABC News and other networks, and an award-winning serial entrepreneur as we explore the solutions that help you make small changes for your sustainable success.
Welcome to Women's Leadership Podcast, showing you how to influence people, improve your performance, and advance your career. Brought to you by women's leadership and career expert Sabrina Brahm and womensleadershipsuccess.com. Here's your chance to meet women trendsetters leading the way to success, accomplishment, and balance in business and life. No matter if you're a manager, CEO, or entrepreneur, join Sabrina for coaching and no-nonsense advice to improve your career and bottom line.
This is Women's Leadership Success.com radio, and this is Sabrina Brahm, and today I have the great pleasure of interviewing Susan Solovic. She's an award-winning serial entrepreneur, a popular keynote speaker, an internet pioneer, and an attorney. A former small business contributor to ABC, she regularly appears on Fox News, Fox Business News, Newsmax, and other national networks. Welcome, Susan.
Well, thank you. Thanks for inviting me to be on your program.
Well, I'm really excited to talk to you today. As I mentioned to you offline, your book has so much wonderful, in-depth information. It was a challenge to figure out what to ask you in 20 to 25 minutes. But let's start. What is the 1% solution? The name of your book is The 1% Edge. Small changes that guarantee relevance and build sustainable success. So what is that? What is 1%?
Well, I started looking at some major brands that, just in the last 10 years, you think about how many, popular brands that have just disappeared from the horizon. And, I thought, well, it's not because they really didn't have a good product or a good service. And so what's happening here? And I realized that we all make this, whether you're a small business or a large company, you get mired in the operations and doing things the same old way. And you don't often see, the changes in the market and the changes in business operations that are happening. So when I talk about the 1% edge, I'm talking about those constant innovation things that you can do to continually enhance your business. And I heard someone say once, you don't want to stay in the status quo, you want to be in the status grow. And if you look at it this way, water is very hot at 211 degrees, but it's boiling at 212 degrees. So that 1 degree difference makes all the difference in the world. So all we need to do is to think about that 1 degree, that 1% edge that can really keep us a step ahead of the competition.
That makes so much sense, and it almost seems like we have to develop a different way of thinking or perceiving things in order to do that.
That's correct. You do. I talk about a process in the book that keeps businesses constantly looking and evolving at every aspect of their business. So often when you think about innovation, you think about your product and your service. Well, with the 1% edge, you're looking at every single aspect of your business organization. And, you can have the coolest, sexiest product in the world out there, but if you don't have the right business operations, the right people, the right infrastructure to support it, you're not going to be successful.
That makes a lot of sense. In your book, you say that innovation doesn't mean disruption. Can you tell us about that?
So I think, once again, when we think of innovation, we think about the things like what Apple Computer comes out with, like when they first came out with the iPod, and then the iPhone, and all of these kinds of really industry changing types of innovation. But it doesn't. Those were disruptive things that changed the industry. But innovation can be those small little things that we're doing every day to continually improve on the delivery and the operations of our business. So, I want people to get the thought out of their head, well, if I'm going to be innovative, I've got to come up with some new cool way of doing things. No, you just have to keep making those tweaks so you're staying current and ahead of the competition.
So what's the mindset or the way of thinking, or maybe the tough questions that we need to ask ourselves to keep thinking like that as we're running our business?
Well, you said a great word there, tough questions. So I think the big thing is when you first start to look at your business and your operations, particularly if you're the founder and CEO of your company, you take a lot of pride in what you've built. But you have to be willing to step back and say, if I weren't doing business this way today, would I continue doing it this way? If so, why? And if not, why? And then park your ego at the doorstep. There can't be any sacred cows. Question absolutely everything. Is there still a really good demand for my product or service? Am I becoming outdated? Am I not reaching the right markets? Do I have the right people on my team? That's a tough one because, if you don't look at your people, if you've got people who are just showing up and putting in their hours and then leaving, you don't really have those people who are being creative and innovative. So you've got to look at that. Do I have the right business operations? Am I utilizing the right technology? Or am I wed to the old way of doing business? So these are the tough questions that you've got to be willing to ask. Who's the competition out there? What's legislation happening that's going to affect my industry? You just don't want to bury your head in the sand and then wake up one morning and go, oh, geez, I didn't see that coming.
It all makes so much sense. And the first thing that I came to mind for me, because I work in, I'm an executive coach and do consulting in corporations. And everybody's so busy, and they tend to be working on the urgent all the time and not stepping back and asking the kind of questions that you're talking about. Do you have an example of a company that's doing this, or do you have a suggestion of how people can start to move into that? How are they going to carve out the time to begin to do this new way of doing business?
Well, time is always a critical question, and that's what people say. But that's how it's kind of a catch-22 because you're busy running and doing things the way you're doing them. But you just really have to carve out that time, put it on your schedule, get away from your normal work environment, and have this sort of reflection. That's the first step in the process. And really, pay attention and listen to what's going on in the marketplace. One of the great advantages we have today, which we didn't have years ago, is the ability to listen via social media. What are your competitors doing? What are customers and clients saying? Where's that void, that special niche in the market that might be missing that you can pick up on? And I'll tell you, one of the companies that I've been watching closely is Crocs. Now, you may remember when Crocs came out, they were so crazy popular, and I thought they were uglier than crap. But anyway, you only bought them in little boutique stores or kiosks, and then all of a sudden, and they went public, by the way, and within 2 years, and their stock soared, and then all of a sudden it tanked. And the reason it tanked was because you could suddenly buy Crocs at your local 7-Eleven. So they lost their cool factor. Mm-hmm. So they really had to reinvent themselves. And they've come up with, I think, like 300 different styles of what they call their lifestyle shoes. They even make golf shoes now. And they've got little ballet flats. They're adorable that I like. I actually wear those. And so they're reaching new markets. But I recently got an email from them. And they are actually reaching out to the market saying, what should we do next? What should the new Crocs look like? So they're letting their customers get a sense of ownership into what they're doing. So you really feel like you have a vested interest, which I'm watching that closely to see how it works for them, because I think that's that new engagement. It used to be a one-way conversation that we had with the marketplace. Now it needs to be engaged two-way conversation.
Wow, that's such a great example. Can you tell us what leaders need to develop in themselves? What kind of skills they need to really make this 1% edge work?
I think the biggest thing leaders need to do is, as I said earlier, get over their egos, get over themselves, and not to have this theory that if it's my way, it's got to be my way or the highway. They really have to be willing to listen. And I think they have to be willing to embrace a very diverse team. You don't want to have people on your team that look and think just like you, because you're not going to get that creative, innovative spark. So you want people with different backgrounds, with different experience levels, with different ethnicity, different age groups. You know, the baby boomers think a lot differently than the millennials. So you really want that diversity in your organization and be willing to listen to what they have to say. And one of the things that, millennials get a bad rap, but one of the things that I think is really cool about millennials today is the fact that they actually will ask why. They want to know what the purpose is. So, a lot of times when we make a decision, we throw it out there. And I know as a baby boomer myself, your boss said do this, or whoever you were working for, well, you did it. You might walk off grumbling like, well, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard, but you certainly didn't question it. The millennials are much more open to saying, well, why are we doing this? And what's the purpose? And what's the outcome we're looking for? And you know what? That is a great exercise to go through. And I think every leader should be open to have that kind of dialogue with their team members.
That is, again, wonderful, wonderful advice. What's the challenge for a leader and a team in terms of their customer?
Well, I think the challenge is that the customer today really has more information about you and your product and your company than you do, probably, because it's all at their fingertips. So once again, it used to be that we could, I was in marketing for years. So you could put a message out there and you'd say it enough times and you'd hope that, that the market heard it. And, that was how you got your business. Now it's really, as I said, a two-way conversation. So the customer really expects you to engage them. They want, if they send you a message through your website, or they've tweeted something, or they're on your Facebook page, they want to be able to get answers and interact. So the interesting dichotomy we have in today's world is we're really high tech, and that's great for efficiency, profitability, productivity, et cetera. But customers and clients want high touch too. So you have to be able to figure out how to do that, and you have to be authentic in the way you do it.
That is so true. We're remodeling a bathroom right now, and the two big well-known hardware stores in the area we couldn't get any service from, and we called a smaller one on the phone, and the guy answered all our questions, and he's about a half an hour. The store's half an hour further out than the other two stores, and we're driving all that way, and we're ordering all the material from him because he's given us such incredible customer service and knows who we are and just is doing fantastic things for us. So yeah, that high touch really does make a big difference.
It really does, right? I mean, it makes you feel special, and even if you go to a restaurant and let's say, it's average food or whatever, and but you go in and they immediately remember, what you like to drink and, what your favorite foods are, or, they give you a little special appetizer or dessert now and then, you're going to go back there because you feel like a VIP, as opposed to going to the new high-end restaurant that's, scrumptious food, and you walk in and, you're just another customer and they could care less, right? So it's different.
It's a big difference. What are the challenges in terms of the product with what you're talking about and how fast things are changing?
Yeah, so I think the product, we can easily get married to our product. And, I think that you look at your product and you look at sales, and let's say your profit margins decide they are going down, or your revenue is going down. And what I see happen in a lot of organizations is people rationalize. Oh, well, we had a really bad winter, so they weren't out as much. Or, well, the economy is not good right now. It'll pick up. And we make excuses, but before long we figure out that, whoa, wait a minute, there's not the market demand for this product as there once was. Mm-hmm. And so you need to constantly be reevaluating, maybe there's a more efficient way to deliver the product so that your profitability goes up. Maybe there's a way to tweak it so it appeals to maybe a little bit younger population. If you look at what Cadillac has done, for example, Cadillac was always your grandfather's car, right? Nice luxury car, whatever. But young people really didn't like it because it was grandfather's car. And so they're trying to reinvent themselves right now and appeal to, design cars, and even their logo has changed to appeal to a little bit younger demographic. So I think those are kind of the things that you have to look at.
Makes a lot of sense. What in your book you talk about the art of the pivot. What is that?
Well, so when you're trying to create the 1% edge, if you want to make real-time strategic decisions, and so you set your priorities, and the 5-year strategic plan or any of that's dead. That's yesterday's news. So you put your plan together, and then you're constantly reevaluating it in real time. And that's where you look at things and say, okay, do we stay this course of action, or do we need to tweak it a little bit, or do we need to abandon it now, get over it, and move forward with another initiative or another strategy? And so that's really the art of the pivot, being agile and being able to make those quick turns. It's kind of like you can be in a scarab in the ocean and turn on a dime, but if you're driving the Queen Mary, it's going to take you a long time to make that turn. And so really smaller and mid-sized organizations really can benefit because they're more flexible and able to make those pivots, in a timely fashion.
So you really have to be comfortable with being willing to let go of things, whether it's an employee or a product or the way you've been thinking about things. This is really requiring a real agile way of being as a leader.
Right, exactly. I talk about it in my book as cutting the dead weight. And I always say that, you've got to be willing to cut the dead weight. So if it's a product that just is not cutting it anymore, there's no demand for it, it might be your most favorite thing that you have on your menu of items. But if it's not working, get rid of it. If you have an employee who, as I said, is just showing up and putting up and, watching the clock all day long and checking their own personal emails and Facebook, well, that's not doing your business any good. You need somebody who's really excited about your vision and who shares your values. And yet what happens in smaller organizations, a lot of times we start out with, certain people on our team, and it works initially, but they might not be the right people to grow your organization. But unfortunately, it kind of becomes like family. And, well, I can't let Susie go, or I can't let Joe go because, well, they've been with me since the beginning. Well, maybe Susie and Joe are ready to move on and do something else too. So you have to do what's right for your business. I always say, business is business and friendship is friendship.
So in your book, you say hire for life. So that's confusing to me. Now you just told me get rid of Joe and Susie, and you say hire for life. So help me understand.
Well, that's why, you want to make smart strategic hiring decisions is what I mean by that. So you want to hire people who do share your values and who have the excitement and the energy to want to go and grow with your organization. And you want to give them the opportunity to grow. So if you have if you're looking at someone who's always going to be a widget builder and doesn't want to do anything else and has no desire to be creative and innovative, and, that's all they want to do is build a widget, well, that's probably not going to be the right person on your team. You want to hire the whole person, someone who has ambitions of their own, who's very entrepreneurial in their own thinking, and then give them the opportunity to flourish. So they will want to stay with you, and you'll want them to stay as well.
Wow. And really, I was going to ask you, what's the mark of an employee that has the 1% edge, but you just described it.
There you go. Yeah, that's it.
That's the kind of employee.
Yeah.
So trust, it's something I see missing a lot in companies. And I'm wondering, what have you found helps to build trust in an organization?
I think that it comes from a leader and managers being willing to open up the doors and have safe harbors, let employees know and team members know that they can say what they need to say, that there's not going to be any repercussions. There's no such thing as a dumb idea. You want people to feel like they're empowered. I think that's really important. I also think it's important for leaders to be very transparent about what's going on in the organization. In my own companies, I've always had an open book in terms of financials. I wanted everybody to see what was going on. The only thing we took out were salaries, but, they needed to know, are we having a good, what's happening? A lot of times they look at things and they're saying, wait a minute, we could cut corners here, or why aren't we pursuing this revenue stream? And, I think there are a lot of good ideas that come from that, but it's when you close the door, when you shut yourself off, that's where the gossip starts. Mm-hmm. And, there's always concern. And the worst thing that happens to any organization is when that gossip mill starts going. And, I think that's very destructive. It's destructive for the company. It can reach customers, and it can really impact morale within the organization.
What about mistakes or failures? I see a lot of different ways people do it that are not very effective, whether it's punishing somebody for making a mistake or just ignoring it.
Yeah.
What do you suggest?
Well, I think that, I used to work for a boss, let me tell you, who used to say, Susan, I'm giving you the opportunity to fail. And at first I didn't understand it, but then I realized that he was giving me not only the responsibility, but the accountability to get things done. And he trusted me to do that. And if I failed, hey, at least I was doing something. Doing something is better than doing nothing. Uh-huh. And I know organizations that actually, they'll have awards for failure of the month or whatever. So, yeah, it's like, yay, I tried. It didn't work out. But by golly, I'm going to learn from this. So there's nothing wrong with failing. You learn from it. Bill Gates calls failure research. So you learn from it and you move on. And, unfortunately, too many people, none of us likes to have failures. Let's face it, it's human nature. But a lot of times people get so caught up in the fear of failure that they become paralyzed, and then nothing gets done, and then the organization doesn't move forward.
That's I love the Bill Gates failure as research. I love that. That's a great way to think about it.
Really.
What is the process edge?
The process edge actually has to do with how you're running your business operations. So, a lot of times as an organization grows, you don't put the right process in place to keep things like redundancies from happening or things falling through the cracks. Or let's say you get one piece of software that doesn't talk to another piece of software, so you're creating extra work. So the process edge is constantly reevaluating. Are we streamlining things? Are we doing things the best way to service our customers, to deliver our product, and those sorts of things? So that's really what the process edge is about. It's not, a lot of people think that's technology, but it's really about your whole organizational culture and how it works and how it flows.
It's beautiful. And we're just about at the end of our interview, and I'm wondering, how would you like to wrap this up, or what do you want to leave the wonderful women that are listening to this program? What do you want them to know?
Well, I think that right now is a great time to be an entrepreneur. If you think of what's happening with robotics and all that sort of thing, a lot of, the jobs that have been the 9-to-5 jobs in the corporate world are going to be passé at some point. They're going to be obsolete. But being an entrepreneur, having creativity and innovation in your organization gives you a real opportunity to excel and to succeed in today's world. Robots are never going to replace creative thinking. They're just not. And so that's what we have an edge for. And I want everybody to remember that, and just really to remember that, being your own boss, it's the best of times and it's the worst of times. But, it's the one opportunity that we in this country have a great opportunity to build wealth and to create our own journey.
I love that. And if you're still working in a company, maybe someday you will have your own business, so you can practice these ideas right there.
There's a lot of companies that are embracing entrepreneurship. So if you look at Procter & Gamble, they were blown away by the Dollar Shave Club. So they've actually started hiring people with entrepreneurial experience because that's the kind of thinking they want within the organization.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Susan, for taking the time to talk to us today. It's been a real pleasure. And I want to mention that your book is The 1% Edge, Small Changes That Guarantee Relevance and Build Sustainable Success. That's with Susan Solovic. Thanks again, Susan.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today. I have 3 great gifts for you that will help you to be a better leader and advance your career. But first, I want to share why I've been doing this show. My passion is to help hundreds of thousands of women worldwide be more successful in their careers and their lives. For over 25 years, I've been researching and teaching business leaders how to get promoted and to be better leaders with great success. Because you are listening to this podcast, you are a part of this global movement to help women increase their incomes and have more impact. Thank you for sharing these shows with your friends and colleagues, and for your great comments and reviews. So here's my free gift to you. For the last 10 years, I've interviewed almost 100 top leaders to find out their leadership secrets. One of their secrets is great communication. So I have put together 14 of their top tips that will help you communicate like a leader and which will advance your career and help you get promoted. So to get this free gift, go to the sidebar on the right-hand side of womensleadershipsuccess.com and look for my 14 masterful communication tips to be a great leader. In addition, here are 2 more ways to advance your leadership skills. Connect with a tribe of like-minded women and me in person for free. Join me for our Facebook Live events on Thursdays at 3 p.m. Pacific Time. Go to www.facebook.com Women's Leadership Success. And in June, I will be doing 3 free webinars to help you develop your leadership and career skills. Watch for the sign-up sheet on womensleadershipsuccess.com. And remember, love yourself, share your gifts, be of service to others, make a difference in the work you do, and thank you so much for listening.
Thank you for joining your host, Sabrina Brahm, on another Women's Leadership Podcast. If you have questions or comments, you can email her at sabrina@sabrinabrahm.com. Since 1989, Sabrina and her team have helped hundreds of women managers, business leaders, and entrepreneurs with valuable trainings, articles, books, and executive coaching. For additional tips, interviews, and free access to Great Leaders Today mini course, visit www.womensleadershipsuccess.com.